Welcome to Robinhood and his Ban and Merry Tips, where I steal techniques from published authors and give them to unpublished ones. Today we're going to be talking about what to do when you find yourself saying, I wish I had more time to write. Firstly, we'll deal with the typical response you get from authors when they get asked, please give us advice on what to do when we're in this position. And secondly, I'd like to touch on what I think you should be saying, and that is, I wish I had more time to learn to write. So to get to the first point, sometimes authors on panels, they get asked, what do you say to someone who says, I wish I had more time to write? And they give a bit more of the bad cop answer, which I think is quite legitimate, but I worry that it can leave a few people a bit disenchanted. The answer tends to be they cite examples of people that are ridiculously busy and they still found time to write a book. And firstly, some of those people may have been highly skilled authors, so though they were ridiculously busy, their time chunks and their effectiveness in their spare time would have been a lot higher. And I worry that people compare themselves to published authors that can smash out novels while doing other things, and they feel bad because they can't match them in their skill level, or they feel bad that these people can do it and they can't. And they feel bad in general that they don't have what it takes to be an author. And I'd like to just touch on that for a moment. When you're making this statement, it's really, you're expressing a desire, I wish I had more time to write. This is a wonderful thing. Because what you're expressing there is you have a desire, you have a passion. And there's this term, passion impoverished. And it deals with the fact that most humans at different points in their life don't actually have a passion. They're sort of ambling along and they're not really sure what they want to do. They're not really sure what excites them. And as a counterexample, I know two people who at the age of 10, they just knew what they wanted to be. One wanted to be an architect and one wanted to be a doctor, and they went and became those things and they loved them. And the idea of being passion impoverished to them is just completely weird. But if you're a bit more like myself, there'll be times in your life where you haven't had a burning passion. And the fact that you've discovered writing and you're expressing this, I wish I had more time to write, it means you've actually found a passion. So just take a moment and give yourself a pat on the back that you know what you want to pursue. Now, secondly, so just generically, let's deal with this. If you say, I wish I had more time to write, and you want to be an author, this is a good thing. If you were to say, I wish I had less time to write and I want to be an author, this is completely nonsensical. So again, you're expressing a desire to do something you love. And you find yourself in this situation, you're expressing a desire to pursue your passion, but you're finding life events and life requirements to be dragging you the other way. Do you think what you have there is conflict? Do you think what you have there is relatable? Do you think what you have there in those two things is the heart of a good novel? It's one thing to actually stop and recognize what you're going through corresponds to a lot of what your protagonist and heroes may go through, and is going to be ridiculously relatable to the common person because they probably have dreams and passions too, and they find that their everyday life gets in the way. So, I'm not suggesting you write an autobiographical piece. However, feel free to use your current situation in your writing, and it sort of gets to the point of what writing is about. It can be quite a cathartic exercise. So just to recap, if you're actually saying, I wish I had more time to write, you've taken a big step forward in becoming a writer. Now, let's go to the second point I'd like to make. And it's more, I think you should be saying, I wish I had more time to learn to write. And here's why. You may not have the time to sit down and write a novel in a wholesale fashion of just 6 months of spare time right now. But that's not to say in the future you might not get the chance to have that time. It may be the case that you're raising kids and the kids will eventually move out, or you're doing a full-time job and dropping back to part-time job. Whatever your life circumstance may be, it may change, and eventually you may get this chunk of time. And I worry if you haven't put in the time to learn to write, when that chunk of time appears, you'll actually have to spend 6 months learning to write, where if you already have the skills, you can just go bam and write your lovely novel. Once we've established we wish we had more time to learn to write, it changes the dynamic, because we can now focus on breaking your time down into little exercises which will improve certain skills. And if you can break writing down into micro exercises and just do them repeatedly, you're going to get a lot better at writing and your skills are going to just soar. If you think of it this way, if I said to you, if you had 300 pieces of writing knowledge or tips in your head, and that's going to make you an amazing writer, and there's this secret to doing it, you could jump at the chance. But the secret is quite simple. You just have to find 2 bits of writing tips a week that you don't know, and do that for 3 years, and you're going to have over 300 new tips and techniques in your head. And there's no magical fountain of writing tips you're going to find. You're going to have to search. You're going to have to try and grow as an author. So I'll go over a few of the ones I did, and I found them quite useful. One was simple with description. I would Google something in Google Image Finder. And one example was I typed in shed and cows. And not surprisingly, pictures of cows and sheds appeared. And I spent some time with a friend just describing them, and we did 3 or 4 attempts, and we did a couple of other pictures, and I did that for about 3 weeks, and my description improved out of sight. And these are just little exercises you can do, and even if it's a matter of you find an image on the internet and you think about how you will describe it, that's something you can do on the drive to work or in the shower when you have these little moments. And I think if you just keep trying to find 15 minutes in your day to learn something about writing, if you do that every day, you eventually become better and better and better at writing. This is where the podcast Writing Excuses comes in really handy. Catch cry is it's 15 minutes long. So that allows you to just find 15 minutes in your day. What I did was, when I was making my breakfast, I would listen to an episode of Writing Excuses, and then when I was getting ready for the work afterwards, I would just loop it 3 or 4 times, and I'd just digest one episode of Writing Excuses over a 48-hour period. And I went through about 80% of the Writing Excuses episodes, and it took me 3 years, I think. But just by digesting it slowly, bit by bit, you'll slowly build up your writing skills. And you can do this on any specific writing skill. They have little micro exercises at the end. They're probably not small enough to what I'm thinking about. So you can break down dialogue, you can break down characterization. Another thing you can do is just study a page of text that are of your favorite author. And if you just sit down and try and figure out what's going on that page and how they're trying to make it happen. So what's the intent of that page and what techniques are they using to make that happen effectively? If you just study it, you will eventually figure out some of the tricks. And this is a wonderful thing too with your trying to fit it into your day. If you just have time to read one page and then think about it over the day or over the week, and you might just read that same page every day in the morning for 5 minutes. And eventually you'll break it down. You'll be amazed if you do this for, if you do a different page each week for 3 weeks, you'll become very good at it. And your ability to pick up good and bad sentences and overuse of words actually gets heightened. And this again raises your level of writing. So in recapping, just like to say, give yourself a pat on the back if you're actually at this stage where you're saying, I wish I had more time to write. Try and be smart about it. Try and break it down into small, manageable learning exercises which you can use. Just to give you an example before I finish, I would practice during the week these small exercises, and then I did actually have 2 hours on the weekend where I could just sit down and write. And at that time, it really allowed me to focus on one thing, and it may be like the one thing over 3 or 4 weeks, and just 15 minutes a day of trying to learn and then thinking about it over the day really improved me as a writer. And I think it would really improve anyone if they just try and use your time effectively. My next episode, I'm going to be going over world building.